Well, when that call came through, almost lost my mind. Yes, when that call came through, almost lost my mind. Because I strictly understood that you had crossed that line. Roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones. I guess there's nothing in this world that can make you stay. Nothing in this world that can make you stay. Oh Lord, I got a word in mind. No matter anyway. Roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones, roll them bones. Well, goodbye, brother. Sad to let you down. Yes, goodbye, brother. Sad to let you down. Oh, well, I'll never see your face until the next go round. Roll them bones.
The sculptor Henry Moore once said that when you see a figure in the distance, what you first perceive is a form, an essence. Moore dedicated himself to capturing that original impression in his art. I was thinking of Henry Moore when I found Dancing Man. I was in the woods behind my house, clearing fallen branches after a storm. All the other branches went into the fire, but Dancing Man was spared. "Hey buddy, what are you doing? Don't you know who I am?" When a piece of wood talks to you, you have to listen. "Okay," I said, "but if you're going to hang around, you have to be useful." I dressed him up and used him as a scarecrow for the vegetable garden, but every morning I'd find him flat on his back. Obviously, gardening my tomatoes was not his thing. That's when he told me, "Man, this is for the birds. I was made to dance and sing." So I perched him in my wildflower garden, and there he blossomed. In the afternoon, when the light was fading, I'd hear him singing, "Dancing man, he's a good man. Dancing man, he's a happy man. Happy, good, dancing man, dancing in the flowers." Ah, if only life were a musical and I had the grace of Fred Astaire. I'd love to dance whenever the mood struck. I'd love to pause in the middle of a conversation to express myself in lyric. But I can't sing worth beans and I can't dance a lick. For years, this undeniable truth has saddened me greatly. Then one night, a yellow moon peered between two slices of cloud like a one-eyed cat, and I heard Dancing Man whisper, "Kid, a little talent wouldn't hurt, but don't let lack of aptitude put a kink in your perfect groove." Then he did a few moves, some simple ball heel steps, and I followed his lead. And then I was in the magic, and he's calling, "Stay light, that's it. Put some pepper in those shoes. Kick it around, break it down. Rat-tat-tat. Massage the maple, Dad. Dance, you plank-spanking fool." We had many nights like this, wild, jubilant. Guess you had to be there. When we started packing to return to California, I didn't know what to do with Dancing Man. I magnanimously offered him to the cocktail neighbors, tried to pawn him off as a lawn sculpture. I thought they'd be excited, but they passed. I broached the subject to Sweetie. Maybe Dancing Man could come with us. He'd love California. But she was just as adamant. No way. He's full of termites and bugs. Are you kidding? And so, Dancing Man will remain in his garden, but I'll always keep him in my heart. Anyway, welcome to the Mr. Baer Show, where we are proudly presenting tomorrow's ridiculousness today. Take it away.
All the birds have started cooing. All the birds have started cooing.
I've always loved Christmas, and after the excitement of the Wadesboro Christmas Parade, which officially marked the beginning of the holiday season, I was flying high with Xmas cheer. Each homeroom class was in competition to create the most stunning holiday decor decoration with a budget of $10 or less, and in her wisdom, Ms. Malaro had chosen me to lead the creative undertaking for our class. First prize was a blue ribbon placed prominently by the winning entry and a field trip to Pizza Hut for the entire homeroom class. Wadesboro had no restaurants save Bowman's Cafe, an old dive where I sold snapping turtles to the cook at $5 a piece when I could find them, and Tasty Freeze, where they made the greasiest fries on the planet. But Pizza Hut, I could barely contain my excitement. I had never experienced a pizza other than the bland cardboard creations generated by our lackluster cafeteria cooks, but I could tell from the advertisements I had viewed that a trip to Pizza Hut must be equitable to some sort of taste bud nirvana. Mouth-watering images of melting mozzarella, flavorful pepperoni, and delicious crust fill my daydreams. In order to be allowed full rein to my creative effort, Mrs. Malaro had given me freedom to choose 3 classmate assistants, and all of us were given passes excusing us from our other classes while we worked on our holiday project. My design was simple and to the point, thinking along the lines that my classmates were like family and our classroom like a home away from home. I conceived the grand idea of decorating the door in the style of a Georgian paneled doorway of a gracious southern mansion. Sheets of cardboard were cut to make panels covered in red metallic wrapping paper for the door, and others were sliced and painted to assemble a pediment and Corinthian columns on either side of the entranceway. Mark Laquelle, one of my assistants, sat on the floor shredding a stack of white plastic trash bags to create a makeshift wreath for the door, while Shirley Ann Lewis designed the doorbell surround, with a matching card that said Ding Dong to go beside it. "Do you have some scissors, Shirley?" Mark asked, trying to get the trash bags to shred properly. "No, baby, but here's something better," she said, pulling a huge Bowie knife from her pocketbook. "Damn, Shirley, what's that for?" Mark asked in shock. "I use it to clean my fingernails," she winked and laughed. Shirley's father was named Frank Lewis also, and we always kidded and told everyone that we had the same father, much to my mother's chagrin. When our task was complete, we stood back and smiled. "Have you ever been to Pizza Hut?" I asked Mark. "No, but my brother did when he was in Charlotte, and he said it was delicious," he grinned. "I've been," Shirley spoke up. "I've been twice when we had to go bail my brothers out of jail out in Charlotte, and once when my auntie took us out for my birthday. And let me tell you, that's some good eating," she salivated. "That cheese is so thick and tasty, it almost made me do the holy dance," she laughed, and held her hand toward heaven as if to testify. By the next morning, the school judges, Ms. Patton, the English teacher, Mr. Jerry Lilly, the biology teacher, and Mrs. Davis, the art teacher, had made their decision, and indeed our classroom boasted a large blue ribbon engraved First Place. Ms. Malaro beamed with obvious pride, and the other students treated the door committee like we were returning space astronauts. "Pizza!" screamed retarded Peggy Little. "I love pizza!" she hollered at the top of her voice. "When have you ever had pizza, girl?" Steve Lear asked. "My mama rolled out a hamburger bun once and put some cheese on it, and it was good," she squealed. Please bring a signed release from your parents by next Tuesday, because that's our targeted field trip to Pizza Hut, Mrs. Malera smiled, pushing her long red hair back from her face. I was lightheaded with anticipation. I didn't eat anything at all weekend, due to the fact that I wanted my stomach to be as empty as possible on Pizza Hut day, thus allowing me to engorge myself totally on pepperoni and sausage pizza. The classroom turned out in their Sunday finery the day of the trip, girls in silky dresses and smart shoes, some of the boys even wearing ties, and we boarded the old orange bus at 10:30 for our 20-minute ride to Rockingham over in Richmond County. Driving down Highway 74 East, we passed the miles and miles of pines, rambling farms, horses and cows, mom-and-pop grocery stores and used car lots. Shirley smiled and rubbed her stomach. "Hang on, baby, we'll be there soon," she said as she patted her belly. The class filed into Pizza Hut with a dignity and reverence normally reserved for the most solemn of occasions. We sank into the red pleather booths in awe and rubbed our hands over the newly upholstered naugahyde. "Damn, that smells good," Mark hummed, his eyes rolling behind his repaired glasses at the buffet of fresh pizzas. To me, the pizza pies were like works of art, glistening creations of edible Fabergé. "Pizza was originally invented for the royalty of Italy," Steve Blair instructed, making us feel even more important. I saw a deputy sheriff out of the corner of my eye, speaking with Mrs. Malero, and watched as they both turned and gazed toward our table. "Are you Lewis?" The officer inquired as I nodded with hesitation. "Can you please come with me?" he asked. "Am I under arrest?" I asked in shock. "Oh, shit, Louie. I know a bail bondsman, baby. Don't worry about nothing," Shirley gasped, as the rest of the table sat speechless. "No, Lewis, your father's had a heart attack. We need to get you to the hospital," the square-jawed officer volunteered, placing his hand on my shoulder to guide me toward the door. "Save me some pizza, Shirley," I pleaded as I turned to walk out Pizza Hut, the scent of fresh baking pizza wafting alongside like a ghost.
Shut up and meditate. You are tuned to the Mr. Baer Show.
Headed for the serious strife. Now you make the scene all day, but tomorrow there'll be hell to pay. In the afterlife, you could be headed for the serious strife. Now you make the scene all day, but tomorrow there'll be hell to pay.
A song I did on the Hot record was called Twilight. Kind of a strange love song. I think we did it, ones we did live, a live take, I think. I wrote this song because I'd been in this doomed love affair in my mid-20s. She was a Peruvian woman. She had long fingers and cheekbones and stuff, very tall, you know. Crazy as a bat, you know, demented, wicked sense of humor. I think she said she felt sometimes like a lone piranha, something like that. Nothing came of it. It was heartbreaking. She moved out of the country without telling me. And then I met, you know, the woman who was to become my wife, a real woman, a real love, you know. But for the purposes of songwriting, you know, a doomed and sparky relationship is always handy at times, you know, since most love songs seem to be sort of surface-oriented, you know, really. So I wrote Twilight. I knew that Twilight was the first song of almost like some kind of trilogy. I don't know why, I just feel like I felt like it was the first one of three. Well, I compared her to a monster. I saw her as like the giant squid, you know. We had driven to the beach on July 4th, and since there was no place to stay, we slept in my car, and we went and swam in the water and ate food, and my hair was standing up on end because of the salt water, and it was all very, you know, romantic in a weird way. And compared her to the giant squid, each morning I dream of twilight and wait for your glow down where the moonflowers grow. far beneath the sea awaits a home for me. Because at the time I wanted to be drugged down to the depths, you know. Turns out I was, in a kind of a horrible way, but such is the life of the artist. After the Hot record, I wrote a song for perennial favorites. It was called The Kraken. I always loved The Kraken. I had a book when I was a kid that had a picture of the sperm whale and the giant squid duking it out, you know, in the inky depths, you know, the eternal battle, man and woman. And so I wrote this song called The Kraken. I knew what the zippers were, and I wanted to figure out what the zippers weren't, or where the zippers could be, or something like that. I had discovered a chord called a 7 flat 5, very odd chord, you know, real sort of dissonant. I'd been listening to a lot of Raymond Scott. Raymond Scott music was done in the 30s. It was just very sort of aggressive, like a spinning top, odd, dissonant. Kind of like cartoon music. You hear a lot of Raymond Scott music in the Warner Brothers cartoons from the 30s. If I played it for you, you'd recognize it. Maybe you could come over one day. We'll play Raymond Scott. So I wrote The Kraken. And The Kraken was sort of in two parts. The one was based around the 7 flat 5 chord. It was very, you know, aggressive and pumping and strange, slightly dissonant. And then the back half was classical harp, you know, and a violin and bowed bass playing subtones, pedal tones on a bowed bass, and Catherine singing way out of her range. Took a bunch of takes for her to get it. And in my mind, it was like the second song of this trilogy, and it was from the point of view of the monster as opposed to the guy that wants to be victimized by the monster. And so it's, tonight I will dream far below the fading light. My dream is for you. My arms were made to hold you tight. Now the time has come. The time has come. I never wrote the last song in the trilogy, probably because I just stopped thinking about this nutty woman. Probably because there was no way that I could wrap it up. There was no bow to be put on the thing. There was only one point of view and another point of view. I might still write it one day, but I doubt it.
I was doing my morning chores and listening to an audiobook about Buddhism. The author was saying that Buddhism had nothing to do with faith or religion or teaching or any doctrine, but was about seeing. Enlightenment is about being awake to reality. Well, I've never considered myself a Buddhist or anything like that, but I want to be awake. I want to be in the moment. I want to be immersed in the river of life. Right thinking was the topic as I was doing my laundry. I was uplifted thinking of my spiritual growth. I would see what was in front of me, really see deep into reality. It was only later, after I was having this elevated moment and feeling very good about my third eye progress, Mr. Mindful, that I realized when I put the new load of laundry into the machine and set the dial that I had spaced out putting in the detergent. A classic Mr. Baer moment. Peter McGoogert. I was curious, more than curious, but the only thing I could find out about Peter McGoogert on Google was that he was on the Building Advisory Committee in the village of Muncie Park, Long Island. At their upcoming meeting, it was noted on the agenda there was a vacancy on the committee. This I chalked up to the fact that Peter McGoogert was dead. I have no idea how his CD collection made it to North Carolina, but I discovered this treasure on my Monday inspection of Edward McKay's used book and CD store. My library is my great luxury, and I always come early on Mondays to check the new goods that might have flooded in over the weekend. I like architecture books, and I grab any reasonably priced art book. I buy volumes of poetry, also biographies, which I usually pick up for $2 to $3 a piece. Travel, philosophy, and psychology, on the other hand, go for top dollar. One must be discerning. Gardening books are no deal either, and anything to do with theology is sky high. I particularly like literary anthologies and business textbooks, also etiquette books. I like knowing I can look up the right thing to do in any situation. Maybe that's because I'm so clueless. I scan the free book cart first. I never make a pig of myself. I take only what will be useful. The free books have black magic marker squiggles on the covers, so you don't try to sell them back. At home, I can usually get the squiggles off with spray cleaner and a sponge. The beauty of the free rack, besides the price, is that I read books that I might normally overlook. On this day, I selected Falling into Theory, Conflicting Views on Reading Literature by David H. Richter, and a biography of theater great George S. Kaufman. Once I'd thoroughly combed the free rack, I headed to the shelves. In the art section, I found The Secret Life of Salvador Dali. I opened the book at random and read, "An elegant woman is one who despises you and has no hair under her arms." I keep her. Then I checked the O shelf in the literary fiction area for novels by John O'Hara. Nothing. So I moved on to poetry and opted for some T.S. Eliot for $1. After I sleuthed for books, I moved to the recent arrival CD shelves. I'm open to almost everything: hip-hop, techno, early 60s folk, jazz, blues, Portuguese fado, Dr. Dre, George Jones, Stone Temple Pilots, Amy Mann, movie soundtracks. Didn't find anything of interest, so I asked one of the salespeople if everything new from the weekend was on the floor. The salesperson alerted me to stacks of plastic container boxes in a back area behind the counter. There were 15 numbered boxes with the name Peter McGoogert neatly written on the side. The boxes contained over 2,000 CDs, primarily classical, opera, and show tunes. It was a well-organized and incredibly thought-out collection, all the CDs in mint condition. I grabbed compilations of Harold Arlen, Kurt Weill, Alan J. Lerner, and performances of La Boheme and Madame Butterfly. Peter McGoogert's taste was exquisite, and I approached the CDs with reverence. He could have been my musical guru. He would have been worth knowing just for what he could have taught me about Mahler alone. I scooped up everything by Liszt, Lutoslawski, Tchaikovsky, Chopin, Schubert, and Schumann. I dug through more boxes and hadn't come to Rachmaninoff, but I knew to keep digging because Sergei would show up sooner or later, Ernst Bloch too, and all the operas by Benjamin Britten. It felt as if the man himself, Peter McGoogert, was laying in state in the back of a used bookstore in a shopping mall, miles from New York, with no one to acknowledge him but me. I was troubled that the collection wasn't left to someone who would cherish it, but I also felt privileged to sort through it while it was still intact. In a few days, the collection would be put out and the cohesion would be gone, the center broken, scattered like ashes. But more real than ashes, for this was a concrete symbol of a man's soul. If Peter was looking down from above, I suspected he would have been more saddened by the dispersal of his music than with the loss of his physical body. The funereal aspect of the experience was so disconcerting, I had to come back a second day. That night, I woke up around 3 a.m. in a sweat. In a dream, I saw my unpublished writing sharing the destiny of Peter McGoogert's CDs. Worse, instead of plastic containers, my papers were unceremoniously discarded into black plastic bags. I saw my life's work out in the curb, with the rest of the trash to be hauled away. Would some sympathetic sanitation engineer pause long enough to hold a momentary vigil? He was here, a flame. Whoosh! Now back to the void. Just a load of dirty laundry left behind and some half-finished paperbacks. Oh well. It was kind of perfect and humbling. Poor Peter, I thought. I had to do something more for him. Some etiquette was called for. What was the right thing to do? Emily Post proved to be no help. All the same, that next morning, the third day, I arrived at Edward McKay's earlier than usual and slightly more unkempt than usual. Hair uncombed, wearing my house slippers, my pajama top, so I'm not sure what the staff thought when I pleaded that they light incense and say a prayer for Peter before they put his CDs on the shelf. I tried to make them grasp the passion and cultivation behind the collection. Here was someone who had delved deep into music and thus deep into the human experience. Here was someone who had mattered. Who knows what they thought, but as long as I was spending money, the staff was willing to humor me. And spending I was. I knew I'd hit pay dirt when I found 2 rare Edith Piaf recordings and a trove of Billie Holiday. Then I bagged Sinatra's Wee Small Hours and Only the Lonely. Sweetie likes to go to sleep with the television on, a habit I've always gone along with but have never considered very elegant. But that night we lit the candles and put on the Sinatra, and the results were excellent, at least as far as putting Sweetie to sleep. Not quite the result I had in mind, but a breakthrough of sorts. Had I known she could sleep with music, I would have done this years ago. On Thursday, my intention was to pull a romantic selection together for our bedroom. And by now, I was no longer in mourning. I was doing my best to pick the corpse clean like a hungry vulture. Peter's ghost was gone. I totally shifted from the sacred to the mundane. My only anxiety now was that there was so much I didn't know about. I was worried gems were slipping by me unnoticed, such as the heavy yoke of ignorance. I returned Friday to scavenge another 10 discs and continued to do the same for many days after. But that's not what I wanted to tell you. You see, it finally dawned on me a few days back to ask the manager a question, and I'm not sure if his answer qualifies as a no Henry twist or even a punchline, but it turns out Peter McGoogert was not dead after all. Peter McGoogert was alive and well and collecting money as I bought. I'd assumed that since his name was written on each box that it was his collection. Wrong. Peter McGoogert was just the person selling. The music belonged to his nephew, name unknown.
Evelyn, please don't cry. Red sun